Hey everyone, it's time for another movie review. This time I'm going to be reviewing a movie that I recently watched last night, and it's a bit of a childhood classic for me. Today I'm going to be reviewing Ben 10 Alien Swarm. This is a great movie. Now, as you can see, this is a live action adaptation of Ben 10 Alien Force, but it's also the second live action Ben 10 film after Ben 10 Race Against Time, which was released 2 years prior. Race Against Time 2007, Alien Swarm 2009. I was only 6 years old when this came out. And I have to admit, it's a pretty good movie. It's not the best movie by any means. It's a great movie, but it's not the best by any means, but it's a great movie. So as you can see, we've got Ben, Gwen, and Kevin. And there's a new character around called Elena Validus. And if you can just about see, there's Humongosaur and Big Chill. The reason those two aliens are only shown here is because they're the only aliens that were featured in the movie. Yeah, only Humongosaur and Big Chill. I don't know why. So basically, this movie is set in between seasons 2 and 3 of Alien Force. We start off with, and the movie does want to let you know that it's a Ben 10 Alien Force movie straight away, because the movie basically opens with a shot of Kevin's car racing down the road. And it turns out Kevin's basically going undercover at an illegal alien tech deal. It turns out it's these tiny little alien chip things stored in little containers. Then Ben and Gwen arrive, and it turns out the deal was set up by the aforementioned Elena Validus, who is actually an old friend of Ben and Gwen, who they haven't seen for years. However, there's this guy in a trench coat and hat on the catwalk observing everything. And pretty soon he just starts raising his hands rather ominously, and the chips actually come alive, and they actually break out of their storage containers and they start swarming around everyone, they basically start swarming everywhere, forming different shapes, resulting in a big battle between them. And of course, it does want you to know that it's a Ben 10 movie straight away, because all the team's powers are on full display, like Gwen's energy projection, Kevin's matter absorption, and of course, Ben's Omnitrix. So Ben jumps into the fight. Turns out the chips were causing interference with the Omnitrix, preventing Ben from transforming, but then it just started working again. Guess the interference was down, and so Ben jumped into the fight as Big Chill. And once the fight ended, Ben and Kevin basically think that Elena set them up, but Ben's not exactly that convinced. Ben trusts her, but Gwen and Kevin don't. They're suspicious of her. And so this is basically just an ongoing thing about Ben's trusting of Elena and his opinion basically clashing with Gwen and Kevin's. They then head into the Plumber headquarters to talk about the alien ships, and they run into Max Tennyson, who is aware that Elena is a Validus. Turns out her father, Victor Validus, stole the alien chips from the Plumber vault, and that caused him to resign as a plumber. A dishonorable discharge, Max said. A traitor. Max then basically ordered Ben to stay away from Elena, as he officially said that the Validus family was blacklisted. But unfortunately, Ben was just too enthusiastic about helping out his friend, and so he broke rank with the plumbers and disobeyed Max's order. And so essentially, he basically left his team, which was actually a pretty bold move. And so Ben and Elena then go on to find Elena's father. And it turns out the man controlling the chips from the garage is actually Victor Validus. He's actually controlling the chips. And we actually get to see that when he confronts two thugs in an alleyway. It's here that we also see the chips burrow their way into their skin. I know it doesn't sound pleasant, but this is not where the story ends. Once they get their way into your skin, they can actually possess people. The chips can actually possess people, turning them into these zombie-like creatures that are servants that are Victor's servants. And since Victor is actually able to control the chips, it's pretty clear that he's basically the whole thing. He's he's basically the leader of this whole organization. And it turns out being possessed by the chips had actually affected his voice a little bit, because it sounded a bit husky. I'm going to do my best impression of it. That's a good girl. Bring them here to us. He can't help you now. That's my best impression. So basically, Ben and Elena then discover that Victor was basically conducting experiments on the chips, upgrading them and developing them. They're then confronted by all those techno-organic zombies. But Ben then repels all of them by using this sort of energy repulse that the Omnitrix had done, like a scan function. The Omnitrix had been scanning the chips, and Ben basically just sent out an energy pulse that knocked them all out. They then found out that Victor was using a company called Ship It, so they went to the distribution center. That was when they saw Gwen and Kevin, who were being chased by other swarms of alien ships, who were actually able to form solid shapes this time, like spheres and stuff, and even get little spikes on them, you know? So basically, and the whole ensuing car chase basically wrecks Kevin's car. Then Ben shows up and fights the chips as Humungosaur. And he does beat the chips, but destroys Kevin's car in the process. Like, literally destroys it, like he literally just breaks it apart. And so they realise that the chips have this sort of Hive Queen. You know, like any insect colony. And so the four of them and Max work together to solve the mystery of the chips and stop them before they're spread all over the world. Unfortunately, during their research, Max is possessed by one of the chips and basically becomes one of their worker drones. They then make their way to the Ship It World Distribution Center in Missouri, which is where Victor was planning to spread the chips worldwide. 6 billion of them, because 6 billion people on Earth. It turns out, and then we see Victor like hooked up to a machine, and he's actually producing the chips himself. So it turns out he's the Hive Queen. And to be completely honest, I could kind of figure that out since he was the one controlling them. So that kind of made it obvious that he was the Hive Queen. But it turns out Elena knew it all along. She lied about not knowing anything, because she knew the plumbers would just reject her. They would just treat her as an enemy. However, so they then get into a fight with those worker drones, and Ben actually flies inside Validus's body as his new alien, Nanomech, which is basically like really, really tiny. Like, you know, Nanomech. Anyway, he flies into Validus's body and basically fights the Hive Queen. It's a massive fight, and it was actually pretty cool spectacle. I mean, the CGI wasn't exactly that good back in 2009, but it was still really awesome seeing two nanomechanical organisms to basically duke it out inside a human's body. And it was obviously causing Validus great discomfort. Eventually, Ben destroyed the Hive Queen and freed everyone from the chip's control, including Victor. And so everything ends, and Elena then thanks Ben for saving her father. It was a pretty epic finale, I must say. And I have to admit, it's actually kind of cool it leads the way into Ultimate Alien, because Ben's car in Ultimate Alien is actually featured in the movie as a bit of a late birthday present from Kevin. And basically, the movie does a great job of showing you that it's a Ben 10 movie straight away. Because even on the cover, you can see the glowing Omnitrix on Ben's wrist. Of course, it shows off Gwen's powers in full force, like her energy projection, her ability to create like steps, like platforms for her to jump on, and also like energy tracing. She can actually trace someone's energy, and also Kevin's ability to absorb matter to make his body look like any material, like metal, stone, or wood. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So all in all, if you want a live-action Ben 10 experience, I would definitely check out Alien Swarm. I'm not sure if there are any DVDs of this online anymore. I'm sure there are, but just very difficult to find. So I'm really lucky that I actually still have this DVD. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review. And if you guys have actually seen this film before, comment down below and let me know what you thought of it. I would love to hear your thoughts on Alien Swarm. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.